Greetings loyal subscribers and honoured guests. Welcome to a brand new season of Covertape Chaos, which of course also means brand new background music. This time we're covering issues 37 to 50, so it's slightly longer than that, 14 episodes, with new ones landing every fortnight. After that there will be another break before season 5, which will also be 14 episodes long and will include the 3 unofficial power packs that were produced by the Commodore Format blog. If you haven't visited their website, then I really recommend you do so. There are a ton of great articles, interviews and downloads for you to enjoy on there. They've also just started a Patreon, so if you like what they're doing then please consider a donation. It can be as little as $1 a month. Without further ado, let's get started with looking at this week's episode. It's another double tape and there's a ton of stuff on there, probably the most individual items ever to feature on a power pack in fact, so this episode might run a little long. We should make the most of it though, because eventually the content of these tapes will start to run a little thin, sadly. Let's get on with the first item then. Our first game is Lien, which was originally released back in 1987. As such, the graphics look a little dated compared to later C64 releases, but by no means terrible. You control a little blobby extraterrestrial guy, and your job is to explore the spaceship, killing mean aliens and avoiding unkillable enemies such as geese for some strange reason. The first time I played this, I had no idea what I was supposed to be doing, and the instructions in the mag didn't really enlighten me in any way. After I looked up the Zap64 review, I had a bit more of an idea though. By using teleporters you can move from deck to deck, and you are supposed to find the bomb and deactivate it on each level. It's by no means an easy game, as there is a constant barrage of enemies, some of which reverse your controls, which is really annoying. It's a decent amount of fun though, so give it a go. Eventually I did manage to get to the bomb, but I couldn't work out how to defuse it, just reset it. The next item is considerably more boring, but potentially useful to some. As the name would imply, Loader Maker allows you to create snazzy loading screens for any programs you may have made. You can even include pictures if you've created them using Saracen Paint, which handily was given away on a previous power pack. Not really much I can show here due to the nature of the software, so let's move on. Our next game is Quest of Kron, which is another text adventure. I had no idea how to progress from the first screen until I read the brief description of the game in the magazine. As I've said before, this sort of thing isn't my forte, but I do know there are plenty of people out there who enjoy the genre even today. I'm more of a graphic adventure guy, as they have a much gentler difficulty curve. Anyway, at the start of Quest of Kron, you find yourself stranded on an island with few options of where to go. The only choice is into the sea, but if you go in there you will freeze to death. Quite the quandary. Directly after Quest of Kron is an advert for his next text adventure, The Argon Factor. It also offers prizes for the people who manage to complete the game quickly, including £1,000, a colour monitor and a subscription to Commodore Format. I wonder who claimed it. Finishing off the first tape is Blocky, a public domain puzzle game that plays a little bit like Columns, except you can't make diagonal lines, which means the game fundamentally doesn't work in my opinion. Without the ability to make diagonals, you will never be able to clear the screen properly. The screen also filled up and the game didn't end, so the game just feels broken. At least the music is very nice and the graphics aren't bad either. Nebulas from Hewson Software Consultants kicks off Tape 2, which you may also know by the name of Castellian. It's a very frustrating platformer where you control a little froggy guy and try and manoeuvre him up a tower which is full of baddies and traps. Sometimes the floor will disappear from under you without warning and kill you, other times you won't be sure which way to go. It's a lot of trial and error, and you're up against a stiff time limit as well. The 3D effect of the tower rotating is quite snazzy, but I don't enjoy the gameplay very much at all. One for the more patient players, definitely. I was very excited about the next demo back when this mag first came out in the shops. Finally, after months and months of reading the developer diary in Commodore Format, I would be able to get my hands on a section of Mayhem in Monsterland. While I do think that Mayhem is a really good game, I don't think it quite deserves the 100% review that it got in CF, as it's not without its flaws. The levels are a little bit too long in my opinion, and the sad versions of the levels are quite dull. I would have allowed the player to get to the happy levels a lot sooner, because this is really where the game shines. Having said that though, it's still a lot of fun and CF were right to hype it through the roof. The C64 needed a champion as it was competing with the likes of the Amiga and the SNES. I'll still go back to Mayhem from time to time, but I've never managed to complete it as it's pretty tough. Maybe one day I will just put on an Infinite Lives poke and play through the whole thing. This is the standout item on this power pack for sure. We're not done yet though, not by far. After Mayhem comes a game made with the help of shoot 'em up construction kit called God the Pixie. While Souk games can't compete with commercially developed games, I do have a lot of respect for people who manage to make a completed game with it, as I tried several times back in the day and spent hours not getting very far. It takes a lot of patience, not to mention artistic and musical ability, to make a finished product with Souk. As these games go, God the Pixie is actually pretty good. The levels go from fixed screen to vertical scrolling and then push scrolling, which is cool to see, and there are some very nicely drawn backgrounds. Not a bad effort at all. Going into side B of Tape 2, we still have 4 games left. The first of these is Virus, a public domain version of Tetris. It's a darn sight better than Blocky, that's for sure. Though I still don't like the addition of single blocks. They should have stuck to the traditional Tetraminos. The graphics and music are very nice and the controls are pretty responsive, so it's a shame they messed around with the classic gameplay as it really wasn't necessary. We have another Souk game now in the form of SCI Force. This is just one of many Souk-based games developed by Alf Ingve. In fact, he's still making them to this day. In this one you take control of a robot warrior and do battle against similar robot warriors in the sky. The Souk engine has come a long way over the years, with various people making significant improvements to it. As such, this release isn't nearly as polished as some of Alf's more modern releases, and it does suffer from some noticeable slowdown, but it ain't bad for the time it was made. The penultimate game this issue is another update of a classic title, this time Lunar Lander. The goal is to dodge and weave through the aliens on your descent down to the moon base, using your thrusters to adjust course if necessary. Then, once you have successfully landed, you take off again and attempt to dock with your mothership. On the way back, you get to use guns, but the aliens will also be firing back at you. Something felt a bit off about this version of the game. I can't quite put my finger on what was wrong, but it definitely isn't as fun as the classic version. Once again though, as with Blocky and Virus, the sound and music of this public domain effort is pretty decent. It's just the way the game plays that is slightly off-putting. Rounding out Power Pack 37 is Game Over, another commercial effort from 1987 developed by Imagine and published by Dynamic. When I first read in the magazine that this was all about running and gunning, I thought it was going to be a lot of fun. But unfortunately the controls are absolutely terrible, with a really floaty jump that takes a lot of getting used to. What a shame. It's not much of a look at either, but there is some decent music on the title screen at least. So there we go. Considering the sheer amount of stuff on these 2 tapes, it's a shame most of it wasn't a bit better. Mayhem in Monsterland is definitely the star of the show, with most of the rest being pretty average. Alien was fun, but I wish I understood it a bit more. And Virus is a decent version of Tetris, but it's not exactly original, is it? I hope things will pick up a bit in Power Pack 38, and CF stick to quality rather than quantity. We'll see when Covertape Chaos returns in 2 weeks' time. In the meantime, take care.